Hello everyone, we're going to get started now. My name is Nicole and I'm a prospective student advisor here at Flinders, and I'll be talking to you about this presentation today. I also have with me Emily. Emily is one of our student ambassadors and is also a current education student.
Hi everyone. So we're going to get started today with our first idea of what is teaching and thinking about what's on the other side of the classroom. So the first question we want to ask is, why do you want to be a teacher, and the types of things that motivate you. So regardless of what degree you might be interested in, these are the types of questions regarding personal interest and personal passion that do drive and motivate us. But for teaching, obviously it is quite a vocation in a lot of respects, and so people really need to be thinking about what it is that might motivate them to become a teacher. So these things might vary. It may be an interest in the real academic side of education and what that means. It could be a real love of nurturing and developing youth. So people's reasons do vary, but that was certainly something that I had to consider moving into it. So a little bit about me and my degree. So I'm studying a Bachelor of Secondary Education combined with a Bachelor of Health Sciences. Nicole's going to go into a little bit more detail about what that actually means later on in our different education degree combinations here at Flinders. We do have the most comprehensive suite of education courses here in South Australia, which is a real benefit. But specifically within my degree, I've got my major area, which is in health, and my minor, which I chose in English. So essentially with your major, you can teach that in a secondary context, teach it until year 10. My major to year 12, minor to year 10. For me, when I was asking those questions regarding my personal motivation and why I wanted to be a teacher, a lot of that extended from a personal experience that I had in the remote Indigenous community of Nauru. I was quite young at that point, I was only 15, but seeing life outside of the city and life outside of a mainstream education context really opened my eyes up to the opportunities that both I had received and I could provide to others. So a lot of those things motivate me in what I'm doing, and I'll talk to that a little bit more later on as well. So teaching is a lot more than just standing up the class and talking. I know in a university context sometimes we feel that that happens to us in lectures, though university and schooling are very different contexts in a lot of ways too. So teaching in a classroom sense involves lots of different things. So we have lesson development and the curriculum. So now that is in relation to the Australian curriculum as well. So meeting the frameworks there and the general capabilities and cross-curriculum priorities. It's also about considering how kids learn and the psychological development of the brain, behaviour management, and the way in which we can perhaps use positive behaviour reinforcement rather than negative reinforcement. Often we hear about the stories regarding rulers on the wrist in traditional education, and now we're definitely moving away from that to more of a behavioural model where we're encouraging the positive behaviours and the relationships in order to foster that. It's also about preparing people for life beyond school. So I know for myself, and I know that Nicole has had certain teachers who certainly influenced her development and her progression into our roles now in our tertiary study. And it's about being that mentor for someone else. So regardless of whether you're in an early childhood, primary or secondary context, you will have those sort of interactions with youth that shape them. So it's a very exciting thing that you are able to do and be part of as a teacher.
Thanks, Emily. So just to start with everyone, I'd just like to remind you, if you would like to have any questions throughout the presentation today, just type them in your chat box that's appearing on the screen and we'll try and answer them as we're going through. Maybe to start with, if everyone would like to say, just put in the chat box if you're currently in Year 12 or if you're coming in as an adult entry as well, then we can try and tailor the presentation a little bit to you as well. So in terms of teaching at Flinders, we've got two sort of main areas in how you can proceed with that. So one of them is that you can do an undergraduate version of the degree. Normally if you do an undergraduate version of the degree, you're looking at about 4 years of full-time study. You'll do teaching topics and specialisation topics in teaching areas as well. The other option is that you can do a Masters of Teaching. A Masters of Teaching normally takes place after you've already done an undergraduate degree. So an undergraduate degree in one area would likely be 3 years, and in the Masters of Teaching, you're looking at approximately 2 more years of full-time study as well. So at Flinders, we teach all of the different range of ages for our education programs. The first one is early childhood, which is your birth to about 8 years old, so up till about year 5. So if you wanted to teach more of that younger level, perhaps in your kindergarten and quite junior primary school, this is the degree for you. The next one, of course, is your primary, so that's your reception to year 7. So there's a bit of overlap with this one, with that early childhood, but this one does allow you to teach up the full range of the primary school years, so right up and through year 7. And then we also have our secondary degrees. So this is when you're looking more at your high school based and also middle school as well. For this one, there'll be a lot of focus on adolescent development because that's a really important part of secondary schooling. You'll also do teaching areas and specialisations at a secondary level because you'll be a subject-specific teacher rather than a general classroom teacher like you would at primary school. At Flinders, all of our degrees are taught in similar ways for education. So no matter what, you'll be doing an education component of the degree, and that will teach you how to teach. The second part of the degree will be the teaching areas that you'll do. So they're the ones that give you knowledge about the topics that you actually go out and teach to students. So for something like early childhood, primary and secondary, you could combine a teaching degree with a Bachelor of Arts to give you that topic knowledge. If you wanted to be maybe a Year 12 science teacher, you'd be looking at doing a Bachelor of Science along with your education degree. If you wanted to be a PE teacher or a health education teacher, you'd be picking up health science. And same if you wanted to specialise in disability studies, then you'd be picking up the disability degree. A lot of people seem to think that a double degree is more work. It's more work than a regular degree, but it's not. So no matter what, you'll be doing 4 topics plus a placement topic in a semester, just like you would in an ordinary degree. Except you might have 2 topics in education and then 2 topics in your Bachelor of Arts degree. It's not any more hard work, and your timetable doesn't take up a lot more space either.
Yeah, so that's a common misconception that I think a lot of people had, and I certainly had coming into education, believing that you were doing double the work. Realistically, it's only an extra year on the end of your single degree, and you will come out with 2 different qualifications, which is fantastic for your career pathways. This is an example of what my timetable looked like at the end of last year. It does differ, of course, dependent on what topics you're doing and the requirements of such. So, for instance, I'm aware that some science topics are a little bit more demanding because of the practical components of that. But you can see that my timetable last year only had me on campus for 2 days a week. So, generally speaking, like Nicole said, I had 2 education topics and 2 topics that related to health sciences or my studies within that. These are really good opportunities for you to work with really specific tutors and lecturers who are experts in their fields. And it's also an opportunity for you to get to know some amazing people who have lots of similar interests in you as you. And I think that's a real benefit of doing the combined degree option, where you're choosing both the education component as well as your alternative degree. So it means that everyone has similar interests and passions.
Yeah, and that's a pretty awesome looking timetable, Emily. You had 3 whole days off and nothing on a Monday morning.
It was awesome.
That's pretty amazing. So in terms of when you're looking at the different courses we have on offer, they all are structured in different ways. So like I said at the beginning, you do have that undergraduate option and the master's option. For some people who might currently be in Year 12, the way that you'll be looking at coming to university is using your ATAR, which is based off your Year 12 results. It's the score you'll get at the end of the year. For anyone who's coming in as an adult entry student, you may have already done some previous TAFE study, or you may be choosing to sit the STAT. That's also just another means of entry. When we're looking at the courses though for a means of entry, we're trying to assess what's going to be more competitive to determine who's able to receive an offer for those courses. If you maybe are in Year 12 at the moment and you don't quite get what you anticipated to get for your Year 12 results, there are other pathways into education as well. So these are a couple of the options here. One is the Bachelor of Arts Education pathway, and the other for primary, and then there's one for secondary as well. So depending on which one of those options you wanted to go into, you could certainly list this in your preferences as one of your lower preferences as a backup. The reason why we suggest you list one of these as a backup is because the ATAF entry for it is a lot lower. So you're looking at around that 60 mark. Really good thing about these courses, if you pick a pathway course and that's what you receive an offer into, if you haven't quite made it up to one of those higher level courses, you can come along, you get to still do education topics and your arts topics, and after 1 year you transfer across into the education version of the program and you get full credit for that year. So you're not sort of missing out on anything. It's just a really good pathway option for you. So at the beginning I talked a little bit about the Masters options as well. So there's 2 ways to do a Masters in Education at Flinders. So one is you can do a Bachelor of Arts, generally on its own, so not linked up with any teaching or anything like that. You just do a Bachelor of Arts. You pick up your 2 sort of teaching areas if you wanted to go into secondary, or if you wanted to do primary or early childhood, you can do any majors or minors of your choice. You do that, it takes 3 years of full-time study. You can also study it part-time if you wanted to as well. At the end, you can apply to go into the Masters of Teaching program at the end for a further 2 years of study. So that's a really good option if you're not really sure if you definitely want to progress on to teaching. We've developed a couple of new programs as well, and these are our bachelor's combined with master's degrees. So these courses are available at all of the different levels. So you've got your early childhood and your secondary. The benefit of this one is that you get to do education topics at the beginning at a master's level. So right from the start you're learning education, you get to do a placement really early on so you can figure out if teaching is something you actually want to do. But you're also going to come out with that master's qualification. So it's a bit more of a higher level qualification.
Also, I think there may be a bit of an error on the slides which we can follow up on after. The Bachelor of Arts Master of Teaching, there should be early childhood, primary and secondary. So that must have been a little bit of a typo, but we'll fix that one later on.
Yes, you're quite right. So yeah, it should be early childhood, primary out of 7 and secondary, not all early childhood there. Another really good thing with this one is that you can add on an additional master's program at the end for just a further 6 months in education. So you can come out with maybe some more leadership skills to help improve your employability for schools. So that's awesome. That means you come out with a bachelor's degree and 2 masters in under 6 years of full-time study, which is pretty unique.
It's an awesome program.
This is just a really nice simple chart to have a look as to where you're sitting as a Year 12 student, maybe with your ATARs. So that ATAR 95 plus gives you guaranteed entry into those master's programs. So that means if you achieve 95 or over in your ATAR and one of those courses is in your list of preferences, you're guaranteed a spot in it. You will be made an offer. So that's really great. Same for the lower ones, that's when you become competitive, so you're applying for those other courses as well, but still using your ATAR results. So earlier we were talking about doing the Bachelor of Arts and then progressing to your Masters of Teaching, but you're not limited to just doing a Bachelor of Arts. So anyone can come and do a Masters of Teaching once they've already got another degree. It just can depend on the area of degree. If you want to do early childhood or primary at a Masters of Teaching level, you don't have to have any specific undergraduate degree. You can come in with any other bachelor's degree. If you wanted to teach at a secondary level, you do need to have 2 teaching areas, and they're listed each year on our website for which ones we're taking in for the course.
And for those people looking at adult entry, this can be a really good option as well, particularly if you've done an undergraduate degree or you're partway through. then considering applying for the Master of Teaching later on might be a really good option.
Definitely. All of these Masters of Teaching ones will qualify you to be registered as a teacher with the Teaching Board of Australia, and you can go out and start teaching once you've completed this course. So it's a really good option, and it only takes 2 years full time, and you come out with a master's level qualification.
Yeah.
As part of your study, you also get the opportunity to do placements. So to make sure you are actually enjoying what you do, you'll get to go out and have that experience working in classrooms, observing professional teachers and seeing what they do. And it's a really good way to actually practice your teaching skills. So no matter which one of our teaching degrees you decide to do, you will have the opportunity for multiple placements throughout the degree. You've got the opportunity to do them here in Adelaide, but you've also got some really good opportunities to potentially go interstate as well, and maybe into regional Australia.
So, like it was on the previous slide, with professional experience, you do have over 80 days in the degree, and I don't know whether you know this, Nicole, but 80 days is actually more than you need for registration as a teacher. So, within your Flinders degrees, you do more professional experience because it's something we value than what you actually need for teacher registration. So I think that's something that's really cool. But for me, professional experience has been a significant part of my learning development, and I don't believe, honestly, that you can fully be a teacher without having had that classroom experience. So this is really your opportunity to take all the theory and the psychology and the practices that you've learned at university and put them into practice and see what works. It's very much trial and error, as well as building those relationships with students that are so pivotal to education and being in the classroom. So I've just come back from an incredible professional experience. I've been up on the Tiwi Islands in the Northern Territory for the last 6 weeks, and I've been teaching secondary students at a local Catholic school there. And to tell you what, that was an amazing experience. So putting yourself out there to do something that's a little bit different can also open you up to some amazing learning opportunities, and there are some incredible educators in a range of schools, but particularly in those country and regional areas, that can help you to develop and can be a really good professional network. So professional networking is also a really important part of professional experience, because these are essentially the people that may employ you at the end of your degree. So it's really, it's very important, and put your best foot forward.
That would have been an amazing experience. Did you receive any, did you get scholarship help for it?
Yeah, so obviously travelling anywhere is a big expense, and during a professional experience, one of the things that you do have to compromise is your work. Because you're full-time in a school, you can't be working a regular 9-to-5 job, unless you perhaps have some casual work or you're on the weekends, but even then it is very time demanding on you mentally and emotionally. And for me, particularly moving away from home for that period of time, so I was granted the Time Read Scholarship, which is an education scholarship offered here at Flinders University, to support pre-service teachers going on remote placements. So I was supported in my flats, and a lot of my food and accommodation up there all came down to my scholarship, which was wonderful. So I was very fortunate in that scenario. Obviously, the School of Education can't offer scholarships to every student, though note that there is a lot of help for students here at Flinders University, regardless of whether that is for placement specifically or whether there's scholarships for academics or financial need. There is a huge amount of support here as students offered by both the university, the School of Education, and our Flinders University Student Association as well.
Yeah, definitely. And actually heaps of scholarships go
unused
every year. So even if you maybe decide to go into a different area, you've got friends or family studying in different areas, always encourage them to apply for scholarships, because there are quite a lot on offer. I think last year there was over $14 million worth of scholarships on offer at Flinders, and some of those did go unused. So it's certainly a really good opportunity to have that financial support as well in your studies.
And those scholarships can be found on our Flinders website, and you can see which you might be eligible for by just having a look through the filters and choosing different courses in different areas too.
So just to wrap up, this is the entry requirements we've been talking about. These are targeted towards our Year 12 students. Obviously, if anyone is an adult entry, the entry scores will not be exactly the same as the ATAR because you'll be coming from different pathways. You might be sitting this STAT, you might have done maybe a foundation studies program with us, or maybe a TAFE course. There's lots of different options, and unfortunately we can't fit them all on the screen here. But for those who are in Year 12 and who are looking at receiving an ATAR, these are some of the ATARs that we've been used for next year. So the ones in the green, they say GE. GE means guaranteed entry. So like I said before, if you get that result above that guaranteed entry mark for your ATAR and that course is in your list of preferences, you've guaranteed a spot in that course. So for something like a Bachelor of Education at primary school combined with a Bachelor of Arts, that has a guaranteed entry of 85. So if you get 85 or above, you're in. But don't feel as though if you get slightly less than 85, you're knocked out, because you're definitely not. The ones in the red are the ATARs that we took in for last year. And those ones tend to fluctuate each year as well. So based on how many people are applying for the course, how popular it is, and those students' ATARs, that can impact on the ATAR for the following year. So the guaranteed ATAR we've got set. If you get that or above, you're in. But don't feel like you're being totally discounted if you don't quite achieve that. And definitely keep those pathway options in mind as well when you're putting in your preferences.
And just the other way as well, I know that there's a lot of perhaps confusion, particularly among Year 12 students with regards to ATARs and feelings of intelligence. So I know that when I was in Year 12, I went to a particularly academic school and felt a lot of pressure to pursue degrees that had higher guaranteed entry scores and guaranteed entry ATARs. And for me, coming to the realisation that an ATAR doesn't necessarily define the intelligence required for the course or its value in society has been a really big learning curve. So it's something we can sometimes get caught up in, particularly within these ideas of perhaps elitism or money. But it's really not so the case, particularly at university. So ATARs and guaranteed entry is all just a supply and demand equation. My apologies. So in a course like education, where we have more places, obviously the guaranteed entry ATAR is perhaps going to be a little bit lower because we have more people getting in. Conversely, perhaps in a course like medicine, which is seen as a very elite or challenging or intelligent course, while the demands are different, they might have a much higher ATAR because there's far fewer places available. So just keep that in mind, particularly if you're tossing up between a few different options. We always encourage people to go with what their heart wants instead of what an ATAR is telling them to do.
Yeah, definitely. And if you do really well in Year 12 and you receive a really high ATAR, something above 95 or something, don't feel as though just because education might have a slightly lower ATAR that you shouldn't pursue that. If that is your passion, you should always follow your passion, because
absolutely. And that was the challenge that I faced as well. So do what you love for sure, regardless of your pathway.
And of course, with an education degree, whilst it does qualify you to be a registered teacher, you don't necessarily have to become a teacher. Lots of students do education and become registered teachers and then pursue careers in other areas. Lots of them go on to work in universities in various roles, in different TAFEs and registered training organisations, in libraries, government and health promotion in the community as well. So you're not just limited to becoming a teacher with a teaching degree. So applications are open right now for 2018 entry. For the undergraduate degrees, the first closing date will be the 29th of September. After that date, you can still apply, but SATAC will charge you a late fee, and it is quite expensive. So if you are considering coming to study next year, I really encourage you to put an application in before the 29th of September, just to avoid that late fee.
And those applications don't look in your preferences either. So
definitely not.
You can pop in anything. You could decide that you were going to put in, medicine, hypothetically speaking. Not that you would, because education's awesome. But you can still change your preferences up until early January.
So you've got all the time. So put your application in now. If you're in Year 12 and you're really worried about making decisions, put an application in now, just to avoid the late fee. Yeah. If you are an international student and you're viewing this webinar, a lot of the information does still apply to you about the courses. In terms of actually applying though, you need to apply a bit differently. It's not through SATAC. So you do need to apply via the international webpage. All the information is on their website, and a good one to have a look into if you're an international student. If you do have any questions that we haven't answered tonight about the course, feel free to put them through in the chat and we can respond to you after. And you can also send us an email or give us a call as well later if you like. There's a link on the webpage as well, so we've got a whole heap more webinars coming up. There will be another one on this same session as well, a bit later, and there'll be some other ones about the unit courses on offer as well. So definitely check out the webinar page too.